This is Daniel Smith from Jets Guru. Welcome to the show. All gas, no brakes. Let's go, Jets.
All gas, no brakes.
Let's make sure we play like the New York Jets.
Hello?
What's going on, Jets Nation? CJ the Painkiller D. Simone here, and you are watching Jets Guru. Now, give it up for your host, Mr. Daniel Smith!
What is going on, Jets Guru faithful? Appreciate the support and join us as we move the show to YouTube and take on this new adventure of basically starting from the ground up once again, trying to build this program out here on YouTube. And listen, it's not going to be easy, but we need your help out there. Please, please subscribe and share on Facebook, because that's where most of our followers are. Let them know, hey, the Guru is live. We're just live on YouTube, man. We're trying to get it going. So a little bit at a time, man. One person at a time. You build it. That's how we built it on Facebook. But with that being said, welcome to the show. Appreciate all your support. Shout out to Gotham City Crew for the fresh gear, as always. Listen, I'm so excited about this season. I mean, I really am. I mean, you guys should be excited too. I mean, it's just everything's come together the last 2 years. We've got Kevin joining us finally. I mean, Mr. High Flyer going around the country, but he's back with us and he's ready to rock and roll. So thanks for joining us, Kevin. And, the camp updates and stuff like that they've been great. I've been loving all of it. The one thing that I just haven't really wanted to see was the injury kind of stuff. And, we lost Lawson last year, and he was our first signing, the guy who was supposed to kind of usher in the change with his aggressive attitude in this new system. But instead, for this year, we got Mr. Becton, who, the expectations on this kid through the roof. We saw him play. So it's not like we don't know what he's capable of. We know what he's capable of, but he can't stay healthy. And that could be a combination of bad luck. That could be a combination of him not taking care of himself properly, the seesaw and weight, just things happen, injuries happen. But for him and for many people, when things like this happen, it's a snowball effect. It's like, there's a reason why there were reports about this guy's weight, about some of the motor, about some of the different things. Those were the cons. Now, a guy can come on and analyze anything, not really know who he is as a person, just go based on the reports. We understand this. But there's, where there's breadcrumbs, there's usually something bigger. And unfortunately, it seemed like we got a little bit more of those cons towards the back end. And he did recover, get his weight under control, looked fresh. He got moved to right tackle nearly immediately. It seemed like the coaching staff knew right away what they wanted, but he took it in stride. He was like, they moved AVT. They took it in stride. They were like, yo, we're going to lock down this right side. And I think everyone was excited to get moving. And then this happens to him. Kevin, how unfortunate do you think, just not getting into the signing, but just his injury for him as a player moving forward and the Jets organization?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a disappointment. Like, it's really a bummer. And I hate the Jets fans who don't take the human element out of this. Like, it's really too bad for him. You know, he seemed like he worked really hard and wanted to, explode into the season and prove a lot of his doubters wrong. And it's really too bad that he's not going to get that opportunity. Even at right tackle, it would have allowed him to work on things and to continue to develop. Like, don't forget, this is a young, still growing player that could be at right tackle for a couple years and long-term move to left tackle. And now his career with the Jets is definitely in doubt. I think the Jets will have to add a starting caliber person there next year because he's a big question mark. And his future, the Jets haven't seen enough. They don't have enough tape to pick up a fifth-year option on him as he goes into year 4, right? Because that would put him in the top tier paid offensive tackles. Like, this definitely puts that draft pick at a really, really bad spot, And, I don't believe in the hindsight thing where people are like, you could have got worse. They were looking for a left tackle and they thought they got one. But this is just another draft pick that will likely go down in Jets history. A little better than D. Milner. I wouldn't put him in that category, but it's the next one where it teased you a little bit and then you never got to see kind of the fruits of that investment. That's how I kind of feel about Becton. I mean, what are your thoughts on Becton being a Jet long-term?
I mean, looking at it now, it's going to be tough. I mean, because the Jets didn't draft him. I mean, well, the Jets drafted him, but this regime didn't draft him. In his first year, in an important year for Zach Wilson, he wasn't around. Then he had the weight issue, which I think contributed him not being able to get back onto the field, at least for the last couple of games of the season. I don't think he was in good condition. That's just a personal opinion. I could be wrong. That's fine. I'm just going off of reports, what you see with your own eyes, what you hear. That's what most people do. So do we really know? I don't know. But he didn't step back on the field. And he's missed more games than he's played at this point. And it's an important time for the Jets. Next year, going into next year for the Jets, Kevin, is a huge year. I mean, you're talking about that's the playoff year. If they surprise this year, that's great. But next year is the playoff year for that organization. And can you put your trust in Becton to stay healthy, to stay in shape, to move to the left side, or to even stay on the right side? The Jets have to figure this out long term. If that's extending Fant, if he has another good season, I don't know what it is. What I do know is they need to let him have a full recovery with no rush whatsoever. He's going to have to prove himself. And so I think at minimum, he probably plays one more year for the Jets. He's going to have an outstanding year, in my opinion, for him to be able to get a contract extension. As we know, Joe Douglas is very frugal with his money, and I don't really see him extending a guy who hasn't really proved anything. And we even saw, even with guys like Leonard Williams, who may have showed a little bit of fight towards the end before they got rid of him and eventually wind up playing well with the Giants, these are just risks he's not willing to take. And it's understandable because he's seen it too often. And honestly, Kevin, this is something that we've spoken about many times with Joe Douglas, and when it comes to injuries and when it comes to fill-in players that they need for the team. Somehow he finds a way. I don't know how he does it, but it seems like each and every year he finds a player, to come out here and fill. We started with Burgess Jr. When he first got in, and what he was able to bring in. I mean, the list just goes on with what he's able to do as a GM. And that leads us to, honestly, to Duane Brown. And listen, there was a lot of talks for the New York Jets about what they were going to do as far as depth is concerned on the offensive line. And when you look at it with Duane Brown, you have a Pro Bowler, a 5-time Pro Bowler. You have a veteran. You have a guy that's been in the playoffs before. You got a guy who went on a stretch, Kevin. I think it was like an 8 or 9 year stretch, maybe even longer than that, where he was over 80, 85 as far as his PFF grade as a tackle. He's one of the highest graded tackles in the playoffs. Um, what is your opinion on the Jets signing Duane Brown?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a must. And obviously the money got up close to Riley Reef money. I think at that time the Jets weren't willing to pay that much for a backup swing tackle. But when Becton went down, they ended up having to cut that same check. I also don't want to do the hindsight 2020 thing where Jets fans have talked about, well, for that much money, could have just re-signed Morgan Moses. At that time, Morgan Moses didn't have a starting opportunity for the Jets. In Baltimore, he does. So the Jets weren't going to pay him starting money. They will pay Duane Brown starting money because he's going to be starting. So the whole thing, it was, a good move. The other thing that's going to come really good out of this, they're going to ease Brown in, right? Get him some reps, get him some practice, take his time. And the reps that Max Mitchell is going to get, which was more than he would have if everybody was healthy, right? If McDermott was playing and Becton was playing, Max Mitchell wouldn't get as many reps as he's going to have. And what an opportunity to quickly develop a backup swing tackle that can be ready to play because he's going to get so much preseason reps, and maybe push Idoga to be that backup tackle if something happens for depth purposes. So I think this is great. I think it's a great insurance policy. And I think as he doesn't have to jump into things in the preseason, we get some of these young developmental players some more reps. So I think this is win-win for the Jets.
Absolutely, 100. It's 100%. It's a win-win for the Jets. And honestly, in my personal opinion, Kevin, I think that it's an upgrade. And I know people might laugh at me a little bit because of that, but you just look at the resume of the player and you look at what he's capable of doing. I just think with the technique, with the veteran experience, if healthy, he's a better player. Now, as far as who's the stronger man at this stage in their career when both healthy, now we're talking about a different story possibly. But you can't tell me a guy in Becton who's played a quarter of the games in the NFL since he's been a pro is better than a 5-time pro and a guy who went on such a long streak of dominant play that it's still there. I mean, you go ahead and just look at the reports of what some GMs have said about this guy and what he still has in the tank, especially from the right tackle position now being moved there. Now, one of the guys that the offensive line coach for the Seahawks had this to say, and he was the offensive line coach from 2018 to 2021. He's definitely got something left in the tank. Solari, he said, great knee bender, and what makes him elite is his athleticism and his change of direction. Very competitive, smart, leader on the field. He'd be an asset for the Jets in the sense of his play, his demeanor, and his work ethic. Brown allowed 8 sacks last season after not allowing more than 4 in any season since 2011. So I'm going to give the guy a little bit of a break that he allowed a few more sacks this season. But every season since 2011, it's been less than 8 sacks. This guy is a player. He still has stuff left in the tank. I trust Joe Douglas's evaluation of how he grades players and how he brings free agents in. I think he's had a lot of success in that fashion. And so I trust that. And honestly, it's not the only move that the Jets could have made, but it's the best move that the Jets could have made, considering how important this year is for the New York Jets. We've talked about it time and time again. The Jets don't have to make the playoffs this year, but they have to show up. It's a competitive AFC. You're still talking in your play to other players in the league for next year. Is this a team that's on the rise? Because we already know Joe Douglas he's not going to bring in guys and bring in complimentary players to fill this roster out in year 3 that are going to overextend the paycheck. That's not what he's going to do. He's going to bring in guys that fit the system and fit what they want to do. Well, it's identity day for the New York Jets. They need to figure out who they're going to be as a football team, as an organization. And it starts this year with the growth from Zach Wilson, the building of the offensive line, the defensive line finally potentially showing up. And then one little side topic, Kevin, that I want to ask you about is Quinnen Williams. There's reports in camp that this guy has been the best Jets player in camp. Been that dominant as a player. What do you expect from this Jets defensive line before we get into the camp updates? What do you expect from this Jets defensive line? Because I know a lot of people are that's what their concern is when they look at a whole at this team. You look at the secondary looks like it's much improved. Offense is much improved, but the defensive line, they have the pieces. Do you think they'll stay healthy enough to execute this wide nine that Saleh likes to play on that defensive line?
Yeah, I think this is a really exciting part of the team. Really young, really athletic, almost like a beehive, like attacking. What's going to be interesting is the teams that line up and try to punch them in the mouth, how, the middle of that defensive line is going to hold up. And I think you're right. Quinnen Williams has a big year ahead of him. He should have a lot of help this year. Man, the speed that we should have with Franklin Myers and Quinnen and Lawson back and Johnson and the rotation in this Martin kid that we got from the Texans, man, he's got like a sack. He makes a big play like every game. I'm so excited like for the rotation that we're going to have, and we're going to have fresh players coming in. The question is, if people line up and try to run up the middle, can the Rankins, the Solomon Thomas, the Nate Shepard rotation hold up and stop them and let Whitehead and Mosley clean up? And that remains to be seen. I think that's where we're going to be measured. But if we're getting into a shootout, like we got some guys that can chase some quarterbacks. Like the Jets got to be excited. This is the most pass rushers I think I've seen on one of our teams in some time. I don't remember. Like, remember when we used to try Mabin and we would do things like little projects?
Yeah.
But they weren't like big time, Clemens, Franklin Myers, Jermaine Johnson, Lawson, Solomon Thomas is a pass rusher, Quinnen is a pass rusher, Rankins is a pass rusher. We don't have that big run stuffer. That's the only thing we don't have is snacks. But we have every cut of defensive linemen, speed, youth, a savvy vet in Lawson, who's still kind of young and very hungry to prove himself after getting that big contract in a contract year, essentially. They can get out of his contract at the end of the year, so Lawson wants to have a big year. You got a hungry group of speed, athleticism, and guys with multiple moves that can beat you multiple ways. That's how Becton got hurt, was going and getting pushed back against this D-line. So as a Jet fan, man, how can you not be excited to see what this D-line does to Allen, Tua, and Mac Jones, right? Like, that's why people like you got your season tickets, right?
Yep.
Like, you want to see it. You want to see it. Jets fans should be excited.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I think, a lot of heat is on Saleh, going into this Jets camp. I mean, I really do agree. It's one of those things where, he was brought here as a defensive coordinator and they didn't show out as much. But listen, that group was a little bit bare bones on the back end, but that's not where the criticism was, because the secondary played a lot better than we thought it was going to play. It was the defensive line up front. It was the inability to get to the quarterback consistently. And then your best player, Quinnen Williams, gets double teamed, which limits what you could do, not just in the run game, but also in him being able to flash his talent, getting after the quarterback. So, when you look at it this year, if healthy going into the season, Robert Saleh is going to be able to deploy his defense in such a way where his playbook is going to be open to any play. See, that's what people don't understand about the NFL when they have their playbooks laid out, is that when you have players that are hurt, when you have players that are injured, when you have certain personnel that just can't run the plays that you want to, it shortens your playbook as a play caller. You got a guy like Randy Moss that you're playing. There's certain plays that you got laid out for just that guy. Right? He's a dynamic guy. Well, our dynamic guy is Elijah Moore on this football team, at least right now. But I don't know, man. We've got some dynamic receivers now on this team, so we'll see. But Elijah Moore, let's say, is our guy right now in camp. He's projected as being the number one guy as far as I'm concerned. When he's missing from the football game, of course it's going to change how LaFleur plays and how he dictates the game. And I think we saw that last year, where I think he did a complimentary job with the pieces that were available and putting together an offensive plan that was good enough. But at the same time, having a host of these players, I think, is where you want to be at, to have the rotation to keep guys fresh in and out of the game. This is where Saleh is going to thrive as a play caller. So I'm super excited for the defensive line, but we got to keep them healthy. These guys have to stay healthy going into preseason, going into the season. We can't be losing any big. You start seeing big names like noticeable players with names like Becton and Carl Lawson. It really, really hurts your team. But moving into Jets camp, I mean, listen, guys, camp is slowly coming to an end here, and it's the season is right around the corner, and I'm super excited, Kevin. It always seems like it's longer than what it is, and then as it gets closer and we get closer to these preseason games, then it's like lightning. Then it just takes off, and then all of a sudden the season's upon you. And the Jets camp, for the most part, has been pretty successful as far as all the reports that we've seen across the board. The Jets had a really bad showing offensively like 2 days ago, which is a good sign and a bad sign. Obviously, you want your offense to kill it every time, but at the same time, you want your defense to have a couple camp days where they kind of dominate. If you want to have a good defense, remember they're growing, they're young, there's still a lot of terminology, so you want these guys to come out there and really put in a good effort, really show up, and I think they have. And the offense responded the very next day. You see the competitive nature of Zach Wilson coming out going 12 for 15 in camp. This is a good camp. It's a good vibe, man. That's what all the reports are coming out of camp. Everyone's in a good vibe. Everyone is feeling good. One thing I wanted to ask you about, Kevin, as far as camp is concerned, is how much do you think that, going into the preseason game at a camp, how much play time do you think the starters are going to get in this first game, considering there's only 2 preseason games available to us?
Yeah, I think they're going to get 2 drives. I think unless it's one of those situations where the offense goes down and scores a touchdown, that's the last time you see the starting offense. But I think if they get a field goal, if they don't get a lot of drives, they do want to work on chemistry. They do want to work on spacing. This is the first time Zach Wilson's played with a lot of these guys in a game situation, right? Azuma, Conklin, Wilson, Breece Hall. We got a whole new offensive line that hasn't played together at all. They have literally, the center hasn't played with either guard on that side of him in his life, right? Now we're going to have a left tackle playing with Tomlinson for the first time. And, we're going to have Max Mitchell or Edoga in at right tackle, getting in.
Oh, well, Wi-Fi extender failed you, brother. But we'll get back to Kevin when he's able to get back in. But, I think when you look at this team and going into the preseason, I think he's right. I think they probably play 2 series, maybe a quarter at best. And something that was very interesting that I think that people need to understand about the preseason games, and Saleh alluded to this, is that there's going to be a couple times in the red zone where the Jets might bring out the special teams. And I don't blame them, because if you look at the track record of the New York Jets, when they have good special teams, they're usually a good football team. And when they're not, they struggle. And listen, the NFL is about field position, about inches. And that comes down to also scoring points as well. There's going to be times for this young offense where it sputters out. There might be a few players out, and you can't leave 6 to 9 points on the board with bad field goal kicking, with not having a kicker who can extend, 45, 50 yards on the regular, and you have to go for it on 4th down or a long 3rd down and take a chance because your field goal kicker is not going to get you where you need to be. That's where mistakes are made. That's when you're taking yourself out of your element as a play caller, and you're stretching out, you're stretching thin. I think taking care of this is the way to go. And the Jets have 2 pretty good field goal kickers. One was one of the best field goal kickers in the game for a little stretch in Greg Zuerlein, and he's been absolutely excellent in camp. Now, this about field goal kickers. They can go through stretches of a few years where they're dominant and then all of a sudden get hurt. Then it takes a little bit of a rebound. Then maybe they're out of focus. And then by the time that happens, usually they get cut. They go to a new team. It takes them a little while to get back. Well, that's where Greg is at. Just a little bit of a layoff, and I think he's back and he's ready to go. You got Eddie Pinheiro, who is just slightly behind Greg as far as his output in camp is concerned. Well, the Jets want to make sure, they want to be convinced that Greg or Pinheiro is the guy. They don't want to go into the start of the season not knowing where they stand, trying to get those points as a young football team. That's the difference between losing 1 or 2 games. What if I told you that the Jets are going to win 5 games next year, and then I told you the Jets were going to win 7 games next year? It's a huge difference. And what if I told you in those games that the Jets lost at an average of 3 points a game? Then you're really going to be hurt. So we can't be giving away football games with chip shots and things that these professional kickers should be able to do. So the Jets want to find one that's good and worthy. I think they've got two that are good enough. I think one is better than the other. And we're going to find out here on Friday and ultimately the next preseason game, unless they allow him to be a pick one starter after this game and then just let him ride out with the reps and just kind of get used to that. But either way, I think it's going to be a better scenario kicking than it's been the last few years for the New York Jets. And I think that's super important. It's an underrated topic that we're really not talking about. And to be honest with you, to really, really be honest with you, special teams is just so underrated. And we actually might have a special guest. We're not saying who it is yet because it's not confirmed, but it's possible that we might have a special guest and a former coach who knows all about special teams. And if we do, we're going to ask him some really good questions and really lay it out for us and let us know why special teams is important to the NFL and why it's been lacking. Why it's been lacking for the New York Jets, at least for the kicking game. I think Boyer has done a really good job as a special teams coach, but when you don't have the personnel, that's not Boyer's fault that people are missing field goals. So at the end of the day, I'm excited. I'm excited about everything leading into tomorrow's game. I think the Jets have a lot to prove this season. I think they will prove a lot. I would leave the hefty expectations of playoffs out the door right now until we can see what this team looks like getting into the first couple games of the season. But be excited. Have fun. Stop the negative talk. You got a GM and a coach and an owner right now that everyone's in lockstep. They're bringing in players, they're bringing in coaches, and they're letting them work. They're not listening to the headlines. They're not falling into the traps. They're not trying to bring Tim Tebow and all these clowns into the circus. That's not what they're trying to do. So listen, the one thing I want you guys to do right now is I want you to subscribe to YouTube. Subscribe. We're here every week, every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/JetsGuru, writing articles weekly. We're on Instagram, on Guru Jets. I mean, come on. We're on Twitter. We're everywhere. But what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to build the YouTube page. And we need your help. So please subscribe. Please share on Facebook. And, it's going to take a little bit at a time to build it back up on here. But we have some great fans and great contributors, and we'll get there. JR, do you have anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Nah, man. I'm just I'm actually excited for this special guest. We're almost 90% that we're going to have them, so just stay tuned. It's going to be a big one.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's it though. Yep, that's it though. Great show, man.
And listen, guys, I got a ticket to the preseason game against the Falcons, and I've been trying to give it away, but you guys don't want it. So let's get to that 150 mark. Okay, and then once we do that, we'll be able to do the giveaway for you guys. So we're only a few away from 150 followers on YouTube, and we'll give away one ticket to the Jets Falcons game. Really nice seats. They're going to be my personal seats, row one. It's not row one field. I mean, get out of here. But you know what I'm saying. The row one in the section that I'm in. Those PSLs are crazy. You know what I mean? So even rich people can't go to Jet games there. But the goal is for this season is try to connect with the fans. The pandemic slowed us down. We weren't able to connect with fans in the same way. So our goal this year is to get out there, get you guys some live feeds, some live video and interaction with the fans from the stadium, in the lots, in the tailgates with our boys out there in Lot D7, Michelle, Euros, and company. And so we're going to give you a little bit of taste of Jets Nation and Jets Guru. We're going to have our Thursday night shows. We're bringing back our Jets Guru audio podcast on Anchor, which could be listened to on Apple. It could be listened to on pretty much every platform. So we're going to be having that going soon. So a lot of big things, but we need your help in sharing. But with that being said, camp's wrapped up. The real stuff is starting and beginning tomorrow. Again, appreciate all the support, JR and Kevin, and everything that we do. Ramon on Twitter. Everything we do here is free, and it's all effort, all grind. And so come out and support us, baby. We appreciate the support. JETS, 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 Jets.
Let's
We
go.
out.